കേൾക്കാൻ ജോസർ?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sure.
Okay. Man is always looking for opportunities, especially on professional front. And today, during this pandemic season too, we are looking for opportunities. We chartered accountants are no exception. We have today amongst us a very eminent personality, CA Balaji K, to discuss the various global opportunities available to us. May I request the Chairman of Ernakulam branch of SARC of ICAI, CA Ranjit Arwakar, to welcome the speaker as well as guests for the day. Over to you, Chairman.
Thank you, Secretary Deepa. Very good evening to all the participants here today and to our beloved faculty for the evening, Sri Balaji K, CA Balaji K from Kottayam. Nonetheless, from the topic itself, it is quite very evident about the concepts that could be touched upon in this session today. Given the scenario or situation for all of us being chartered accountants, probably I am not sure if it is right, but we are on a dicey ground. We are on a shaky ground for the minute or for the moment, and probably this is when chartered accountants, many of us, or the calls, the inquiries, the doubts that we receive often is with regard to widening the horizon of practice of consulting for our professionals. So we thought that this topic particularly could be of utmost importance for various factors, for a lot of junior chartered accountants or younger chartered accountants who are to begin practice. The scope, the horizon, the prospect for traditional practice per se is getting a little thin off late, which is a very given fact. And so it is that there are these lots of opportunities, a lot of grounds for us to widen our area of profession. And hence, for this purpose, that we have none other than CA Balaji K, who personally I know that who's got a lot of exposure and experience at the global front. I think he's no, he's got a full-time running associate office or a branch office at the UAE. Plus, from my friends and from few common friends, I'm given to understand he has a lot of practice in countries like Australia, New Zealand, and a lot of other places as well. So, with these a few little words at the outset, let me take this good opportunity to enlighten all of us, seniors, juniors, all of us, on the scope, on the new opportunities, on the new grounds that we can explore and try and implement and bring into our practice. Let me take this opportunity to welcome our very own Balaji sir to the evening session today. For the participants we have around 85 participants. I'm sure majority of them could be junior chartered accountants, younger chartered accountants looking to expand on a global front. Nonetheless, for the given point of time, COVID is a tension for us, is a place of anxiety, creating a place of anxiety for us. But I guess there's nothing to panic for the moment. Staying stronger, staying safe, most importantly, is of great, is the need of the hour. But no, I should also take this good opportunity to inform you all, or maybe it is a time for a mass appeal that no, this is the time when we should all take part in the CABF, Chartered Accountants Benevolent Fund, that is provided by the Institute Delhi, wherein there's a lot of no, all of us know, not many of the chartered accountants are from a well-off background, or are not in the good frame of financial backup. Maybe for seniors, for juniors, whatever it is. And it is during these testing times like this that we all need to be of help to each one of us or each one of others. Being a good brother, being a good part of the family, helping them is of utmost importance. It is an emotional ground for all of us to be there for each other. And it is my humble appeal that all of us take part. It's a very minimal amount of rupees 1,000 or so for an annual membership, or it is just 10,000 rupees for a lifetime membership. And the benefits, the advantages, the hand holding that you get out of CABF is of utmost important value. And hence, my humble request to each one of you to kindly be part of the CABA program. I hence at this moment of time would like to promote and create awareness more than the promotion. I would like to create awareness on the importance of CABF. With these few little words, let me once again welcome each one of you. My immediate past chairman, CA Roy Verghese sir is here. Vice Chairman Jose KV sir, Secretary of the branch Deepa Madam, all other managing committee members. We have around 100 plus registrations for the evening today, given to understand the importance of the topic. Hearty welcome to each one of you. Without much ado, I think we will go straight into the topic. Back to you, Deepa Madam.
Chairman, it's a pleasure to introduce CA Balaji K. He is a partner of Messrs. Rangamani Associates and is in charge of the Kottayam branch. This firm was founded in 1960. His 14 years of varied experience in financial, accounting, taxation, auditing, and various types of MIS. He's a regular faculty at professional colleges and also addresses conventions on tax related matters. Balaji sir is an expert in international business strategies and network, foreign exchange regulations. He's also an expert in estate liquidation with experience in dealing with clients from India, Switzerland, and has extensive work experience in UAE and Qatar. Sir, with these words, may I request you to discuss the various global opportunities available today for chartered accountants. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deepa Madam. Very good evening to all of you. I start with a hearty thanks for the ICAI Ernakulam branch, especially the chairman, Mr. Ranjit. And I also vividly recollect the opportunity given by Roy sir a couple of years back. So, with this little introduction, I will straight away go to the topic. The point that where we are now is actually the timing couldn't have been more perfect, I would say, for various reasons. One, as C.A. Ranjit very rightly pointed out, we are in the midst of a big crisis that we don't know where we are heading to, in all sense of that word. We have to really be very safe, ensure that we don't take much risk, and with the virtual lockdown being imposed in the days to come, we are again in exercise. So at this point, important to understand that unless as a human being we live a healthy life, the opportunities that come to us cannot be positively taken up. So we all need to have a proper healthy lifestyle, which I hope every one of us following us seriously. Now coming to this topic, there aren't much PowerPoint presentation or uh, any kind of slides to share in this. It's basically the quest for success that drove me into this particular global world. I started my practice in 2002 after Appa passed away in 99. And I was quite happy with the tax practice, which had given, being by my father, the legacy that we had at office was enough to ensure that we carry on life with land. It all changed when I, because my guru is, of course, my father, under whom I started my articles. Then, after his demise, it was shifted to my senior partner, Sri Krishnan, who all of us very affectionately called Kichapa. Under him, I took wings, and then an opportunity had come sometime in 2008 to interact with Ganesh sir. It was basically Ganesh sir who opened my eyes and then made me realize that even he, way back in 2008, he had predicted that the threshold audits, which is basically the breadwinner for a regular practitioner like me, is on the downside. He even predicted that under the new Companies Act, we will have to have rotation in place, and then God knows when they will lift the threshold of 40 lakhs. And when you fast forward and then stand at the point where we are now, his words were prophetic. In fact, it was his superb mentorship which made us realize as Indian chartered accountant is to be reckoned as one among the best in the world. Even at that point, he had traveled to countries like Brazil, etc., for the sake of clients' work. So he showed me that it's possible, and with his guidance and advice, we started looking for opportunities. So it all started on a very small note when I visited Qatar way back in 2010 for a client's closing accounts closing related issue. Then I realized that the world in UAE and other countries in GCC there is a huge potential for proper advice. We were able to gauge that. See, as we are all aware, one of the things that really clicked for us was to ensure that we see the future properly. That's one good thing that we did right. And the point was, as we all know, in a place like, for let's take Dubai as a classic example. Dubai, it's a free country where all of us can start working. But the moment I started looking at the numbers, I realized that there is a huge folly trap monarchs there, where they were made to feel, the person who do business were made to feel that there is no tax basically. But that was not the case basically. If you look at it carefully, the way they have packaged the whole thing is tax is an anathema for all of us. We try to avoid tax and we do anything to avoid tax. In the guise of not paying tax, the rental part of that entire establishment was supercharged by the governments there. And also the threat of the locals taking complete control. So there they used to have two separate agreements basically. Once we start business, we all know that there will be a separate agreement executed by the sponsoring Arab, where he is made to understand that he will be happy if you just pay him 20,000 dirhams a year. Then the small number of clients with whom we started the consulting, we made them ensure that the accounts basically reflect that part. For example, if the sponsor dies, then the estate settlement is directly done by the courts in Dubai. Then the private agreement is of no value. Then the entire business will be valued, and whatever profits that is legitimately due to the legal heir will have to be paid. Now, that really broke the back of a couple of institutions, especially in Qatar, when the same thing happened. So, this basically ensured that the services that we provided to the clients had a transformational value. That was the key to the whole success that we would very clearly project. When we try to take up a case, it's not a case of merely getting the exchange benefit out of the consulting that we do. Beyond that, there are a lot of threats in terms of the laws being misinterpreted there. That's one huge advantage that, as an Indian chartered accountant we had, because we already know which way to jump the fence where the height is or to, we don't get trapped by making a irregular step. Such things were not there in Go, because VAT is again a recent introduction in GCC which transformed the lives of many a chartered accountant. We were already geared, we had a good association with an entity there with whom we forged a good working relationship, where even now we do the VAT returns by sitting in India and then servicing the clients in Dubai. Now, Qatar is one example. Then Dubai. Dubai is the place where we started looking at good opportunities which were coming our way. And I was always wondering why CA community at large was not looking at this in a cohesive manner. We don't have a forum. The Dubai chapter is very robust, of course, but then we don't have a proper approach at the local branch level to orient the chartered accountant in the global world. We never had workshops where we were taking care of the changes that were taking place in GCC, where a lot of us could have really made our metal proved there in a positive manner, not looking merely at the money that is involved in it. Of course, that's a major criteria. So, to start with, I'd like to share a very brief presentation. Let me see how it works. Ranjit, can you confirm this? So I'm not trying to make any Greek or make any rocket science presentation. It's just that opportunity is there as an ICAI member in the global world. It's just that we have not taken the extra step, or we never thought. There is a funny side to the whole thing. If you ask me what's my inspiration to look at this, there is this movie Alai Paide where Madhavan sees Shalini for the first time going in a flash in the train. And his friends taunt him, how's that you're going to trace this girl who's among the 20 lakh girls in Madras? And finally, he gives his reasoning and then he gets his gun. So if you think that what can we do, then there is basically nothing that we can do about it. But if you think that you can do something, then the universal energy works in such a way that before you start understanding the whole thing, you will start getting opportunities in this global world. The വേൾഡ് ഇപ്പം നമ്മുടെ കേരളത്തിൽ പറയുന്ന പോലെ ലോകമേ തറവാട്, it's a virtual world where you can work in any corner of the world provided you think that you can do it. That's where I strongly urge the unit in Ernakulam of ICAI to take this up in the right earnestness and see that there are a lot of opportunities which we can take up only if we come together as a big group. That's one great thing which I've always observed, especially in Dubai. If we are part of a good, robust network of chartered accountants where we can help each other. If there is something which I cannot do, if I feel that Mr. Ranjit can do, I should know that Mr. Ranjit is capable of doing it. That information relating to specialization of each member is probably not well known to the other member. Unlike the profession, medical profession, where you know exactly if one patient comes to you and you feel that he has a problem relating to kidney, which you identify, but you are not able to service, you immediately refer him to the person who is a specialist in that, because that common reference point is very much available with us. But unfortunately, in our profession, we do not have the common database where we can access and know that this particular issue can be handled by our fellow member. So the core point is, if you want to see that, especially given the recent changes made in the income tax regulation, where a lot of transactions are getting reported in 26 years, and also stringent measures imposed few years back relating to demonetization, then changes in the way properties to be purchased, the value shown, the transfers made to the bank account, all of this do result in certain additional consultancy that we get. But then, unfortunately, it is not related to the effort that we put. That's why I said, even with tough regulations, the fees that we collect is probably, especially in a small town like Kottayam, where we find that uh, they have absolutely money for everything, but when it comes to recovery of fees, suddenly the whole situations, even when the world will be going gaga over the moon saying that this has been a fantastic year, the client would say, though, it is, I mean, fees is buying a tighter. That part was really very stressful for us to understand, especially as a young person, say in 2008 or 9, when we have put our best of effort and then help client to realize his commercial goal or his business potential. When it comes to recovery of fees for the chartered accountant, they always find it difficult to part with fees with pleasure. So that's one disadvantage that we are facing here, which also made us see why we should not look at opportunities which is available across the world. Then you can see that there's a huge technological challenge that is being posted here. I would take a minute off on this particular thing and then say that when the technological advances were imposed in terms of filing and other related issues, the government or even the institute, I would say that it had failed miserably to understand how much and to what extent its existing members can embrace the change in technology. For example, way back in 2007-8, when the online filing of income tax return was imposed on us as a bolt from blue, many of us could not find a place, or it was very difficult to find feet in that flux. A lot of people failed. So, that particular aspect, if you compare, I know how much uh, difficult it will be to swallow this information. There is a county in Canada, Brunswick County, where the bookkeeping is still done manually. People write books, the accounts are written manually by hand. They use normal calculators. There's not even a computer to be seen. That's because government had protected those people who are not yet geared up to face the technological change in terms of their ability to deliver. What would have otherwise happened is that a lot of establishments, if you overnight change technology imposed on people, that will result in a lot of institutions which are presently complying with the regulations will die. It is not a natural death, basically. You can even say that it's a technological homicide, but then not much study has been done on that. One fine day, you find that there is change. Nobody wants to understand whether the change can be absorbed by the people who are directly affected by that. But then, as we all know, today crying babies definitely don't get the milk. If you want to get the milk, you have to wear that smile. So this technological overrun also resulted in we looking at, because once you see that this threshold for e-billing, directly billing from the government website, is brought down to lower level, there is also a possibility of audit based on threshold limits being taken away completely. Because if they have the data relating to purchase and sale and also the transaction which is being routed through the bank, then the sanctity of the chartered accountant giving an audit report under Form 3CD or 3CB will be completely vitiated. And in the sense, it will not be necessary for the government to rely on the report of the chartered accountant in Form 3CD to properly assess the income of the assessee. So you can see that that falling threshold audit, what started as a 40 lakh in 87, 88, is now virtually 10 crore for somebody who is doing 95% of the business through banking system itself. So there are a lot of, for example, if you take an IT company, they will be happily not willing to submit to the audit because their transactions are, the employees are being paid only through the system. Their complete revenues come only through the bank account. So these challenges have forced us to ponder, to pause and think, what next? To what extent? See, there are two ways economics works. One is to reduce your fee to maintain the business or to expand your business, or to find greener pastures. In the sense, the law of marginal diminishing utility forces us to expand our capacity. But how do you expand our capacity? People talk about doing a lot of additional work, but unless and until we are able to keep our existing practice, clientele, their sensitivity needs well in place, it will be very difficult to think of an expansion. So we had in our office, there was a small online support system available way back in 2008 based by a Delhi company, which allowed you to monitor the work. Even though it didn't really work well, we used some of those templates to ensure that the deadlines are met, clients are educated in advance as to their responsibilities, and this resulted in the creating an additional capacity for the partner, not for the individual. It is very important that when you get into a global scenario, it's important that the partner has additional time spent for this work, because it may not suffice to tell your client that, oh, I'm sorry that we couldn't meet this deadline because my junior was not there. One slip and then that will be the end of it. They are very unforgiving because you have to be really, the word professional would make sense the moment you step in the global scenario. I know many of us, there are a lot of CAs who travel very regularly for consulting and other related work abroad. I'm sure that all of them would share my ethos relating to dress code. Today, if you find that I'm wearing a coat, it's not just to show off, it is to bring in perspective. Had it been a regular meeting, I would have just worn the normal dress. There was one incident in Dubai where me and our working associate there, we had to go for a meeting. So I had just walked into his office well in time. He appreciated it, but he said, Balaji, I'm not going to take you for the meeting because you're not wearing a coat. In Dubai, it is one of the basic requirements that you come for a meeting fully prepared. So I had to rush back to my room to ensure that I make myself available. നമ്മൾ മലയാളത്തിൽ പറയില്ല നാട് ഓടുമ്പോൾ നടുവേ ഓടണം. You need to understand ഏതാണ് നടുവ്, എങ്ങനെയാ ഓടേണ്ടത്. Unless we are able to prepare, അല്ലാതെ if you are being stubborn, oh no, I don't want to come because this is the dress I wear. If you show that stubbornness, then you will find it very difficult to merge with the crowd. So the great advantage of having being able to meet those requirements probably was my cricketing background, because one match I may score 100, next match first ball I may get out. But so we need to take each experience in a manner where we can augment our cause and expand our work base and work better. So that's one advantage which I always had, that failures were never seen as a debilitating part in my character. I always took those failures in my stride, and then it's like your technical flaw, which may result you in getting out of form in cricket. So you need to go back and find out what went wrong. The moment you can give yourself that ability to think that it is not the other person but you who made the mistake at that particular point, then a resolution takes place immediately and you become a better human being. As I said, the advantage relating to we being getting billed in foreign exchange was another great advantage. You can always see that the work that we do abroad results in some compromises that we need to make in our personal life, but as a professional, you get great satisfaction in terms of the work that you do when you see your client smiling and say that you've done a good job. And for that, I personally did a lot of research and worked hard on developing skills outside our profession. For example, I was reasonably well versed with the land regulation ceiling act that is there in Kerala. That helped a lot. In fact, it will be good if somehow we can, as a chartered accountant, find ways to ensure that some evening law colleges are opened up, which will allow things to be viewed from a totally different perspective than merely the account numbers, than the very insensitive figures that you see plotted in the books or in the system. If you can go beyond that and then travel a bit, it is a bit risky because you may not be able to meet the needs of the local clients. So that is one great advantage. We had a good team who was with my father, and then we also developed juniors from our office who would be given to understand that if they work well, they can straight away become partners. So to distribute the work in the local office, we had spread to small locations where the local client needs is met by serving at their doorstep. It actually works only if you're able to keep the existing clientele happy, and only then you go for the global opportunities will it work well. Otherwise, you will be left in no man's land. Fortunately for Trishangu, he had Vishwamitra to protect him to provide a heaven. But then we may not have that luxury unless we have our steps properly covered. So if you look at what are the opportunities that we have in the global world, it's not nothing new. It's nothing new that you look at it. If you break down, these are the core areas within which we confine our practice. We don't try to make them understand that we can do any kind of work, etc. Bookkeeping, as we all know, is very simple. And I know many of you are aware that some of the softwares these days allow you to import an Excel file which is properly created, for example, a bank statement, and in one click, the whole thing is getting converted into entries. We don't have to just download it and then keep entering it. That really saves time. And compliance, I'll take Australia, for example. In Australia, you can see that the filing is related to VAT there and also FBT. So those people who are in practice way back in 2004, 5 to 8 will definitely recollect the slightly complicated fringe benefit tax. So fringe benefit tax was basically pulled out exactly from the Australian scenario and then implemented in India, and they knew that it was not going to be successful. So after 4 years, they took it away. But then the experience that we had in fringe benefit tax helped us a lot when we started working on the Australian angle, where they still have to file fringe benefit tax. So that's why I said the Indian experience here is unmatched. It is basically because our institute has really grilled us, has been very stringent in awarding marks, made us really toil hard to become a professional. That experience has always stood in good stead whenever we have faced challenges abroad. And then we come to consultancy is nothing. It's everything that you broadly categorize there is none. But then the astonishing truth is that the experience that we gauge here are unmatched in the global scenario. It could be because of the number of people, or I don't know, when, for example, when VAT was implemented widely in UAE, it really set the hall on fire. Everyone was very upset, especially relating to contracts. There was one particular situation where they were not sure how to deal about the retention money. We all know that retention is part and parcel of any contract. So they were completely at a loss as to how to identify what was the, when we walked into a meeting and I was there, this person, Mr. Iyad, who was also a fantastic professional CPA from USA, who's again like me, a second generation CA in Dubai. So this thing was really eating their thoughts. They were absolutely at a loss. So since we have dealt with retention in quite a few number of cases, we were able to make them realize that it is just a balance sheet item, not a revenue item. So therefore, it is insensitive to any kind of VAT-related transaction. It is not a VAT-related transaction. It is coming only in the balance sheet. You have already paid tax, so when you get your retention, there is no question of VAT being imposed. So that really saved them a lot of money. And fortunately, for the official who was sitting at the revenue office, also saw our explanation convincing, and that helped our client. So the work that we do in India, it is to be presented in a context which is necessary for that locality. We need to really have that vivid imagination well within the expected corners. We cannot really go wild, we cannot be short. We need to be very apt. The discretion on our part to present things based on the local needs is very important. For example, somebody trying to set up practice in Australia, it really will not work by merely sending emails, Zoom meeting. Zoom meeting, of course, started now. Earlier, they used to come in Messenger, but then a personal visit still has tremendous value, even though it may really cost a bomb to travel and come back to Australia with the stringent visa regulations, etc. But then people who have taken up work in Australia will find that it takes an Aussie 2 to 3 years to get that trust understood in the professional. Once they do that, then they'll start referring. That's something very unique. Please believe me, Europeans and Westerners, they will do anything for you but give good reference to a third person. They never take responsibility for the character and conduct of another person unless he is very, very sure about what you do. So fortunately for us, we always had good reference because we used to keep our timelines, deadlines. Then, as I said, one great advantage is in terms of the fee that you discuss. The moment you, as a chartered accountant, are able to discuss the fees upfront with the client, that shows that you have confidence. And again, working in Dubai, 50% of the fees is received in advance. It's part of the contract. So that gives us a lot of solace. As I said, end of the day, the toil that you make, the hard work that you do, it has to translate in some kind of pecuniary benefit. Otherwise, there is no, it is because you see that those opportunities are dwindling in India that forces you to look for greener pastures. I'm also reminded of the efforts taken by the Indians in the last century or in the late 19th century when mining opportunities were thrown up in South Africa. A lot of people used to leave India, go there and set up their trade. Likewise, there is a huge world which is waiting as a chartered accountant where we can contribute. And many of you would like to know why they want to use our services. Of course, it is because we are economically a viable option for them than engaging a local person. For example, in Australia, there are stringent laws which force them to pay minimum wages. And you look at a normal accountant, he has to be paid 55 to 60,000 Australian dollars to be engaged as an accountant. Whereas when you look at the work volume, the time that you spend in terms of the partner hours, you are confident that you can wrap up the work at not more than $20,000 or $25,000. So that's a huge advantage for them. And again, there's no retirement benefits attached to the consultancy work that we do to those clients there. So it has to be a proper balance. And at any rate, somebody trying to set up, we as a recommendation, I would definitely say that if it's working out less than $50 an hour, then I don't think it's really worth it because you have to have a balance in terms of your Indian practice. That's as I may repeat that quite often here. Please excuse me. It's not because I'm getting a bit jittery on that, but that's actually the fact. Unless you have other vision, and for that also, I would see that we are found lacking in terms of embracing foreign degrees, which of course will come in the next slide. We have to have a cohesive approach to the whole thing where there are, as Mr. Ranjit rightly pointed out, there are young chartered accountants who have gladly taken to profession. If you look at the ratio, it is much higher in terms of people who qualify and come to practice than was the case probably 15 years or 20 years back. That's actually a very heartening thing. In fact, those people should be motivated to take up CPA Australia, CPA US, and especially the European Union. Again, once the pandemic closes, Europe is going to be the biggest market for Indian CS in terms of services being rendered there. But how geared up we are for that, I think I'll have to really say that we are not really geared up, which I, of course, will come to the next slide. So the opportunities available, and there's one due diligence. Due diligence is a very smart thing that we could employ. Over the years, we have built up excellent global network of CA professionals across the world in most of the countries. There was a client who wanted to do some gold related trade in Kenya, and he gave me some reference. So we used our network to check on the client, which basically is due diligence. And it turned out to be that it was a gang of robbers or fraudsters who are trying to entice our client into believing that if they come there and then hand over $500,000 US, they can take gold from the mine at 50% of the existing market value. So these kind of frauds happen right under our nose. And maybe you also would have experienced many of our clients burning their fingers in the process of without doing a proper check. So this saved us the ignominy, or rather the client, the ignominy of having to look like a fool in front of his family, in front of peers, and finally losing a lot of hard-earned money in the process of making quick money. Anytime something looks like a quick money, it definitely looks like a fraud. So, but then how do you prove that it's a fraud to the client? When somebody comes and asks you, I got this opportunity in Kenya, I'm going to Kenya, how would you tell your client that it's not safe to do that? So we need to have a good network of professionals built to ensure that our clients don't suffer in the matter. And the great thing in terms of having this network is we will get work back. It's like your British Airways fly, it says we fly both ways to India and London. So when you serve your client by engaging a professional, maybe you will have to pay $400 or $500 for that engagement without you being able to recover that money from your client. That professional will remember the reference that you had given him, and he will bear in mind the fact that you had engaged him. Then the choice of being going to the internet and then picking up some names that you don't know and just send an email and then use a service. So if you have a known face who can be known through the meetings or the conferences that you attend across the world, please do ensure to maintain some contacts by wishing them on Christmas, Easter, or if it's from the Islamic countries on Ramzan and those days. That makes one hell of a difference in the way they look at us. They know the Indians as very hospitable, but then when you see that there is an interaction, the moment some opportunity come, they definitely will think of you for having been a good person who referred a client, and also someone who keeps remembering them on important days. That's very important. And just as we were about to get into this presentation, we got 4 opportunities coming into our side from Australian office. We have a colleague who's in Australia with whom we have this association, and he sent us 4 opportunities. So one of the opportunity looks quite big. In fact, it could be a 5 to 6 week engagement in India. So that way you will be able to bolster your local practice as well. It's not that you sacrifice the local practice and then go for greener pastures. It's a win-win situation. You have the best of both the worlds, where you become very sharper in your local practice. Over the years, you can imbibe the practices adopted abroad, the way the documents are maintained, the engagement letters. That's something which I really have to thank my working associate, Mr. Iyad in Dubai, who very gleefully agreed to share the template of the contract that they have with the client. We have assiduously for the last 8 years been following that at office, where they were a little astounded to say that we, at the beginning of the year itself, we send that contract to the client, we get the engagement letter, we get the appointment, we very clearly define the scope, and we do something which most of us should have done, but then failed to do. We clearly tell them what is the professional risk involved in case something falls, and we get it in writing from the client that it is limited to the fees that we charge. So that's something very important. Some fraud takes place in your client's place, and finally, if you are held responsible And God forbid, that kind of a scenario has not really taken place in India because clients have not really thought about you being responsible as a chartered accountant in your duty being not properly done, where you are individually held responsible. Something of that sort happens. How do you protect yourself? So this has also been helpful for us in forging a very airtight documentation process implemented at our office in terms of wording our contract with the client. Now we have a contract which clearly lays out what is our risk and what is the financial risk involved. It cannot be an unlimited amount, because suppose you charge a client for a consultancy work or you do an audit for say 30,000 and some fraud happens, and he says that you are responsible and you have to make good the loss of say 2 crore or 1 crore, whatever that amount is. That's not the case. So let there be no negligence. But then, in case negligence is proved because of this contract, you will only part with the fees that you've collected and not more than that. Because that's a huge benefit which I saw, because we thought global, we went global. He imbibed some fantastic practices applied there, and they were also appreciative of some of the work that we do here, and they have also been gracious enough to adopt those small additional notes that we give to the clients in terms of a small analysis, irrespective of the fees involved. That was basically something which was very stunning for the Western world to agree that we could do outstanding work irrespective of the size involved. There, the whole thing is in terms of the number of, for example, in Switzerland, the lawyer would charge 1,000 francs per hour, mind you. That includes the conversation that he has on the phone. We are made to ask questions. നമ്മൾ മലയാളത്തിൽ പറയുന്ന പോലെ നമ്മുടെ ജീവിതത്തിലെ ഒരു 30% ഈ വഴിവെക്കാത്ത. You give free advice, they take that free advice, they make good use of it, and they wouldn't even bother to come back and say that thank you very much for your timely advice. It was useful, and they wouldn't even turn up on Christmas Day to say that have this cake because your advice helped me. That respect they have in the Western world for the accounting profession has not really been reflective in India. Especially, I'm not blaming the client per se. For them, they feel that they're doing a service by making us, more sharp in our career. അങ്ങനെയും പറയും, ഞാൻ അങ്ങനെ ചോദിച്ചോണ്ടല്ലേ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് അത് പഠിക്കാൻ പറ്റും. As though he was giving us an opportunity to increase our profile in our professional world. That need not be the case. So we were never able to ensure that the professional time spent has to be quid pro quo. Even though we cannot enforce that, especially in a small town like Kottayam, I think in due course we will also do that. Somebody comes, we have a Google Pay at office. We have been having the swiping machine in our office for the last 9 years. So some of the clients were shocked to see that why are you having this? That time people were not even keen on paying fees through the account. They would only come with cash. So we were able to tell them that even if it's a small way, 500 രൂപയിലുള്ള സമയം കുഴപ്പമില്ല, നിങ്ങൾ ഞങ്ങളുടെ സ്വൈപ്പ് മെഷീൻ ഉണ്ട്, അത് കാർഡ് ഉള്ളെങ്കിൽ അതങ്ങ് കൊടുത്താൽ മതി എന്ന് പറയും. So that way, we should never let go of the opportunity to ensure that what we do translate into proper fees. This was again an education which was given to us because we went into the global scenario. There, everything counts, nothing comes for free. That is why I said the opportunities relating to what I said is not an exhaustive list. That's why I left the last portion open. It could be anything, especially setting up of companies who are coming to India. The engagement that I referred a while ago is relating to setting up of 2 companies in India for our Australian associate who's working in Brisbane. So he has requested that we look into that matter and then form 2 companies for them. Normally, how much do we charge for a company being registered in India? Maybe 10,000. Somebody may even charge 20,000. But then this will be a good experience where we set up and we can charge not less than $1,000 US for setting up a company here, which will be a good break because the further billing will be based on that. If they retain us as an auditor, I will just take the earlier slide. See, the stuff regulation, all of us would have been quite stunned with the way the new Companies Act relating to reporting has come. And also the technology that is required for the client in terms of their books being containing a software which will leave enough audit trail. I don't know how far our client is geared up for that. So the point is, when we report, to the client in a manner which is required by law, the effort, they are only looking at the turnover. Last year, one of my clients called and said, Swami, ഈ വർഷം ഭയങ്കര നഷ്ടമാണ്, അതുകൊണ്ട് ഫീസൊക്കെ കുറയ്ക്കണം. And I had to very bluntly tell him I was not draining out his profits. When he made a windfall profit 3 years ago, I gave him those figures. I told him our work is based on the time that we spend. It's quite unfortunate that you have ended up making a loss out of it. But then we were not like leeches when we increased our fees when you had a huge turnover or when you had a huge profit. So, in fact, our regulation, ethical code itself prevents us from quoting fees based on percentage unless it is a very special contract which is clearly provided in the code of ethics as well. So, we have to ensure that when we deal with clients, especially abroad, they are also not expecting anything for free. But then the time spent, the commitment given, the timeline that we generally follow what is called an agreeable protocol or timelines or deadlines. We have a small template for that we share with the client. So they are generally happy with the time that we mark in those presentation to them whenever such assignments take place. So if at all you are taking up any, now let us take it one by one. For bookkeeping, we need to have an awareness of the software. So those of you who are not doing this kind of a work, I'm just taking a couple of minutes or maybe even 5 minutes to explain that. In fact, they will be happily providing you a licensed software into your system with which you can do the work. For people in the Pacific, they basically use MYOB than the other Peachtree or some other software that we are familiar with. Familiar, especially you know that this QuickBook is really spreading into the world, and Zoho has also made a lot of inroads. In fact, I would request Ernakulam branch to specifically look at Zoho being provided to its members through a special package because it really transforms. See, the key is we need to know the work that is being handled at our office and at what pace, what is spending, what are the deadlines. If we can manage our office properly and ensure that we have full control over the existing practice, then you will find that the time that you spend for your existing practice definitely shrinks. So if that stage is reached, then that is a time to look for global opportunities. And bookkeeping is a very soft option where you will find if you go to the internet, there itself, without even knowing the client, you can look at the openings which come, you can send an email to them, and they will definitely start with asking, they will say that we are looking to replace our accountant, how much you will charge. For heaven's sake, please don't start with a quote. You ask him to provide what is the existing cost paid by him, because once you start the work, you will know. Then you reach a scenario where you are wise after the event. It's very important. Anyone in the world tries to make more money, and your client and you are no exception to that. But we don't want to be on the wrong side of things. For example, somebody whose existing accountant is being paid 100,000. In order to ensure that you get the work, you start with a jump quote of say $10,000. He will happily lap it up and then give the contract to you. Later, when you start preparing the accounts, you find that the existing accountant was paid a woofing sum of $100,000. So it's always prudent and wise to understand the cost at which the entity is working. It's that we can definitely absorb the $10,000 or $15,000 and still make good amount of money, but that's not the point. The whole thing to be sustainable, we need to work in an environment where you see that the client is also transparent, client is also open to it, and gives proper respect for the work that you do. Gone are the days of apartheid when people with the skin were looked upon as good or bad. Now, with the advent of technology, nobody even knows what is the color of your skin as long as you deliver the goods. So that's actually the better part of this advent of technology. But then, as I said, in a moment to ensure that we get the contract, please do not start with a low quote. Understand the cost involved in the process and see what is the capacity, because initially they expect you to spend a lot of time. You should be fully prepared for that. And the time zone. Suppose you're serving a client in US and he calls for a meeting at 11, then don't remember that when you are in the second show. Of course, now cinema theaters are good. Then I have also faced this where we have not been diligent enough to use the reminders. I'm talking about 11 years back when some meeting was there, somebody had called, and I forgot that there was a meeting and I was in the cinema theater. Of course, we did manage that, but then we have evolved from that flaw. Keep your timetable, and if there is a problem for you in accepting a 11 p.m. appointment, do let the client know, because they can also give you an appointment at 7 p.m., which is more convenient. That's a day that they would have started in US. And so also with a client in Australia who starts the day early, and that really works well for us. We don't have to really lose sleep to meet their deadlines. We can still ensure that we work within our normal working times and then ensure. So that's why I said when you take up this quote, you see when they want the whole thing to be delivered at what time. If it's a daily routine bookkeeping work where they expect the day's entries to be posted to them at a particular time, see the timing difference. And if that means that you have to engage somebody at night, then the rate at which you will pay your employee will be higher than the normal rate. So this part also needs to be absorbed when you look at the code that you give. And this due diligence is one area where you will have a lot of opportunities. We don't know that we have friends, say in Ecuador or further remote places where we wouldn't even have heard the name. But then now that this Facebook is there, that's how I started ensuring that we are able to give proper response to those people. Through them, you develop the network. You have a lot of friends. Everyone has friends. There is no person who do not have friends who are in other places of the world. Maybe somebody was a good friend who's working in Infosys. Now he's in Goldman Sachs in some place. So we have to keep track of so many things. It's not that you just think one fine day that I'll go global. The preparatory part as to what is your USP, what is the core delivery potential that you hold within you, and also the extra time specifically available to you to dedicate for the cause has to be the basis based on which you prepare yourself for the global scenario, not on any other scale. So these are the opportunities which are generally available, and setting up of companies here, and as well as for people. I had somebody walked into my office and said that I need to start a company in Isle of Man. I would have really been taken aback, but then not anymore. You name any place somebody wants to start an entity, we are fully ready with that. So that also ensured that, as I said, keeping the local clients happy is one thing, and making them really happy because you directly can control their overseas activity through a proven, known, trustworthy person really transforms your fortune. There was a entity which was engaged in procuring or rather processing green pepper. The regulatory issues in Kerala and also procuring goods, because Vietnam pepper is basically not allowed to be imported in India, even though it is coming through Sri Lankan route and also smuggled across through the Nepal borders in a wide scale. But on a general scale, where a client wants to be really compliant and play by the books, it will be very difficult to compete because the prices are hugely skewed in favor of the Vietnamese pepper. So we used our contact, we sent him to Vietnam, and through our network, he was able to create a big factory there, right in Vietnam, and his fortunes multiplied. Imagine pepper being procured at 350 kgs here, where you get it in Vietnam for close to 180 to 200 directly in Vietnam. Of course, the setting up cost was prohibitory in terms of the money that you look at the short run, but then this client was willing to look at the long run, the advantages, and finally he really prospered and sold it off, and there is come back. So that's why I said the opportunity that beckons is unlimited. We don't have to limit ourselves to see that, okay, I will only do bookkeeping, I will only do consultancy. It's not like that. We as a professional, we are capable of taking care of almost all commercial needs of our clients, not merely relating to reading of agreements or reading the numbers or providing timely advice or providing due diligence alone. Maybe the situation in India will evolve to such a scenario where we are forced to embrace exclusive specialization and ensure that we only work in the domain. But then, probably for the generation that we are in, we may not really look at that aspect of we not being able to do anything other than what we are specifically specialized in. So, my request is keep your mind open, you get your house right. That's very important. If you're looking at an opportunity for taking an additional client who's very demanding, who also pays well, you have to be absolutely sure that you do take care of their needs in a manner which requires them to see that you can not only claim to deliver, but you do deliver. Then the remuneration aspect is automatically taken care of. So we have to just see, are we really geared up for this? I don't know how many of you have really taken note of the mutually recognizable association that we have with other accounting professions. This part, I also request, there is a huge opportunity awaiting in England where people who are FCA, who get a person in good standing certificate from the institute with proper SOP, statement of purpose, written to the ICAW, can write just one paper and then become an ICAW professional as well. That throws up a world of opportunity. I unfortunately could not complete that, but then that's something which I will definitely do shortly. And my first interaction with Mr. Ranjit was when I received a message saying that the Australian delegation of CPA is coming down to Cochin and to discuss the formality of getting Indian CS to take up CPA in Australia through MRF. But I don't know how far the branch has taken initiative to ensure that proper classes are conducted. And I think that's one great thing. Ernakulam branch has always been a path breaker, trendsetter, something that all of us have always looked up in terms of what you have done. For example, ARS at Kotem, they have also implemented ARS from last year. It's because you proved that it cannot be impossible for all the members to have the, that really gives us a lot of advantage in terms of attending various types of meetings and also ensuring that CP part in terms of numbers are also taken up. So I would strongly urge Mr. Ranjit, who is as vivacious and dynamic a chairman that we can ever hope for, that he will definitely heed to my humble request to set up small circles where people who want to take up CPA or ICAW, if you have a minimum number, you should start a professional class to ensure that we also are shown as person capable of obtaining international degree. You remember the times when we always used to go to a doctor who had MRCP or who was an FRCS because we valued that those people will be able to give better advice. Now imagine your business card looks like FCA, ACA, ICAW, CPA Australia, CPA US. This is not something which is going to cost much, make you spend a lot of time, make you feel that it is an O, but it is not like that. It is well within our reach, provided there is a collective effort. Now we may think, what would I want to do? Why would I want to sacrifice the practice time and then look at something which will only be there on paper? It is not like that. There are people who are watching us. This is not a world where privacy in its strictest sense is implemented. Excuse me. Even though this is a very private world, we are being watched. There are a lot of people who search your profile in LinkedIn, and then if they find something, the idea or the point that I'm trying to make is to make ourselves look as international accountant as we are proud to be a member of the ICAI. As we are very proud to be a member of ICAI, it has provided us enough hints that we are the best in the world. for an ICAW to become a chartered accountant in India, he has to write 4 papers, whereas we have to write only 1 paper to become a member. And for that 1 paper, which is a case study, which is an open book exam. Believe me, it is not so easy to have an open book exam where we have all understood the exams, where we have to pull out things from our memory. It is our ability to find the right word at the right time by referring to books and still beat them, which makes the whole course tickle. So we should gear up by adding professional recognition under MRA and also obtain probably CISA. Again, Mr. Ajit, you would have seen that for the Auditors General certificate or empanelment, they are asking for CISA. You either use your good offices to ensure that CA Institute makes it DISA, or ensure that we are able to create more CISA professionals. For that also, there are a lot of people who are very keen to take up. Something very interesting took place yesterday. We got a request from a student, prospective student, who wishes to join for CA as an article. That person is a BCA, and the I forgot the exact words. Yeah, she said her skills, or she is very good in programming. She wants to become a good accountant by using her programming skills. That's the way of the world. Very soon, we will have accounting professionals replaced by technological professionals, unless we are way ahead of the time and then see that the technological overrun doesn't really affect our day-to-day working in so miserable a manner that we are also forced to leave the scene because of the technological overrun, which would have affected many an accountant. There is one particular person who used to come to our office with, at least amongst our clients, he had something like 20 clients in Kottayam market who are all his clients. The moment VAT was introduced, he got jittery. Then, when it shifted to online, he went out of business. So, even though it may look like an advantage where some of them would have come to many of the chartered accountants, because we are able to meet the technological need, the future needs of technology is really going to be very, very challenging. So, we have to be very aware of what is required from us. And then the next thing, the contacts, all of them are worth its weight in gold. We never see, there's a funny reference to the good contacts that you have. It is what I would call your stock in trade, where you have not spent any money. It is only the good relationship which you have with people who may win you an outstanding contract. I don't know if we have thought about it. I keep checking with my friends in case something comes up. You let me know, and then it doesn't amount to soliciting. You don't look at it in a way we are infringing the ethical code. We don't really go and tell people. When what I meant is, when we speak to friends, he checks with me, what are the things that you do? He said, we will be setting up companies for people who are from your country as well. He said, oh, that's good to know. Somebody I know wanted to check with me whom I can look to in terms of a company. So that reference comes through that personal source, where we only tell him that in case somebody is looking for an opportunity, you please bear our name in mind. Likewise, you win confidence. You deliver goods, you win confidence, and that client becomes the single point of reference for you to have more and more number of clients to come. So I'm not concluding this presentation, but I'm saying that please have trust in your own abilities. Please do not limit. And it is very good to be our own critic, but then not in a depreciating manner where you dent your confidence. Something may not work on one particular day, on a particular time, but that doesn't mean that you're not good enough. The moment the institute finds you fit to become a professional chartered accountant, then we are amongst the best in the world. Have no two thoughts about it. It's a wonderful feeling to be a chartered accountant, because when we move around the world, we definitely see that even the Europeans, even the Hartnett Switzerland nationals, they also think very highly of us when we show them that the result to be achieved is basically not so difficult. We always have the ability to find a shorter route and to ensure that success is reached in a point where everyone is happy. This particular reference to Switzerland client was basically one of the Swiss clients. Very unfortunately, he passed away, and he had a huge estate in India. So it was difficult for the legal heirs to engage a Swiss professional who will charge by the hour. So we did lot of groundwork, created contracts for them, and used our contacts here, and then ensured that the property was liquidated, and then with all the regulatory complaints, the money was sent back to them, and we pocketed a reasonable amount of fees out of that engagement. And suppose I had thought that what would I do in Switzerland? I don't even know the country. I have not been there. Then nothing would have worked. We need to think that, as they say in metaphysics, there is not a dream, there is not a word spoken or a thought that emanates without the universal spirit deliberately creating that in your vision, in terms of dreams, or in your mind to make you think or use your tongue to speak. So have trust in your own abilities that we are all equal in the eyes of God, and what one person can do, we can definitely look at trying to do that. If not, definitely straight away thinking that we need to really do that and then jump the gun. It's not what I meant. I'm saying that once we think Fonda, you will find that you also have enough contacts across the world. And slowly, we also need to realize something else. Given the way the reporting is changed in India over the years, it's absolutely very much on cards that this profession, that being exclusively catered to by Indian chartered accountants, will be opened up to foreign firms as well very soon. I can see that coming. It's just a question of time, because not many of us will remember that in 1992 India did not merely sign the GATT. It was basically GATT's General Agreement on Tariff and Trade and Services. It was because of some tremendous effort made by some Indian professional chartered accountants that was thwarted or kept in abeyance. But then that cannot be done forever.